Hello, my name is Caruso, and I work for the Institute on Disabilities at Temple University. And today it's my pleasure to talk about two of the Social Role Valorization, SRV, themes, personal and competency enhancement, and the development of model, as well as the power of imitation. So let's talk a bit about what does personal and competency enhancement mean. It's the combination of observable and measurable knowledge, skills, abilities, and personal attributes that contribute to enhanced performance and ultimately result in success. And we all want to gain in our competence, our personal competence as we grow and learn. Now, there are some assumptions about personal competency enhancement and the development of the model at a university. And let me talk a bit about those. So first is the belief that all students possess tremendous capacity for growth. Now, I have a daughter who's entering college this year, so I really understand this, that she has this potential for amazing growth, as would a person with an intellectual disability. Number two would be to suggest that all students achieve greater well-being when engaged in meaningful and relevant activity, which happens at university and colleges. Number three, students have more growth potential that is apparent in any one person or elicited by others. And we all know this, because going to school ourselves, we know that some teachers didn't think we had the capabilities, while others really knew that we could learn and to grow. And then number four, the assumptions and implications are universal relevance to all students, no matter what age or degree of ability. So assumptions lead to action by the Inclusive Postsecondary Higher Education Initiative. There are some major reasons why personal competency enhancement of people who are devalued is so important. And you can think back to a presentation by Darcy in the very beginning around devaluation and how that impacts people with disabilities. So we know that competency development and exercise is a natural growth mode of humans. We see this in babies, and we even know in utero that babies can, if they listen to music, can move to the music and can learn from the music. Number two, personal competency is highly culturally valued. I don't know, our culture is all about learning, growing, becoming competent, gaining in skill sets and your abilities. Number three, the more competent an individual is, the more accepting society will be of any negatively valued difference the person may have. They'll overlook the difference because they see the competence a person holds. The possession of competencies is likely to enable a person to overcome functional impairment. So for example, a person who has Down syndrome, you might look at that individual and you see his Down syndrome, but when they gain competence and skills, you overlook the Down syndrome. You see a person with competence. Now, Wolfensberger lists broad areas of personal competence that most of us literally acquire as we grow in our lives. And these are like maintaining one's health. I mean, my daughter, again, is going off to college, and these are the sort of things I want her to know as she's going off to college, is maintaining your health. Increasing your bodily strength, agility, and your stamina. Gaining in self-help skills, knowing how to do a banking account and cook and all those sort of things that you learn as self-help skills. Number four, projecting a positive personal appearance. I mean, I know she's going to dress in all sorts of ways, but I want her to at least fit in and be similar to what other college students might be wearing and doing. I'd like her to be able to communicate with others in an effective way. Number six, increase her own intellectual ability, her skills, her habits, and her disciplines. These are things we all want. Some specific personal competencies for students that I think, again, I would love for my daughter, a person with an intellectual disability going off to college. I think this is what their parents would equally want. And the first is to learn how to follow a schedule and attend and arrive on time for class. That's a really important skill set for any student going off to college. Number two, learn study skills. To complete and turn in assignments on time. If you don't, you're going to fail that course. Number three is to participate in class discussions, not just to sit there in class, but really to be involved, to be part of those discussions. Number four, to learn to ask questions and to respond to questions, which is what is expected of students. Five, to think critically about issues and topics, and to have opinions. I mean, that's part of going off to college. Number six, gain competence and skill in the area of interest that you have, whatever that might be. But you go off to college to become more adept at the area that you have an interest in. Learn how to use technology for learning. And we know that students with intellectual disabilities can learn to use technology as well as anybody else. Participate in internships to gain skills for future work. That's why kids go off to college. And I have three sons who are out of college now, and it was their internships that really led to the world of work and jobs. Become disciplined. Know how to apply oneself to a task so you can get a job at the end, that you're competent, you're able to create a talent, a skill set, an ability to get a job and to work. Wolf Wolfensberger states that one of the most powerful ways of enhancing the personal competency of people, especially if they're devalued or at risk, and increasing the likelihood that people's competencies will be enhanced, is the adoption of the developmental model. Now, what he says is, if implemented properly, the developmental model can lead to tremendous growth for people because of its positive assumptions about the abilities of every person to grow, its high demands of expectations, and its requirement that people must develop fully. And we know this about the developmental model because that's what school is all based upon. It's the idea that we grow literally from birth to death, the idea of growing and learning. So there's two broad strategies for enhancing the personal competency of a student: relevance and potency. And we spoke about this in a previous model called model coherency. And relevance really speaks to, is the university, is the college, what's it doing to meet students' real needs? And what do they need more than other things, okay? And are they getting it? And then potency really is, what are the most powerful ways of delivering the content? What are the measures to capitalize on strategies likely to address a student's needs effectively? So it's not enough just to have a class. How long is that class? What's expected in the class? That's the potency piece of it. So what can an inclusive higher education initiative do to promote potency in its work with students in these 5 areas? And I'm going to share an example of Missy, a student at Millersville University's Integrated Studies Initiative, to illustrate each of these 5 areas. Number 1, make sure a student's time is used with intensity and efficiency. Here, Missy is in class with other non-disabled students, taking a course she wants to take, attending all the scheduled classes, expected to do the coursework and participate in class with all the non-disabled students. The course is not shorter time-wise for her. There's no less classes. There's no less expectations to complete assignments or do the work or take the tests. She's a student like every other student. And again, using her time effectively with intensity and efficiency. Number 2, effective address of a person's needs is facilitated, not hindered by the size and competition of the groupings with other people. Here, Missy attends class with other students who are interested in the same course, grouped with other non-disabled students, not in a special class, just for students with disabilities. She's a class member like all the other matriculating students. Number 3, use of competency-enhancing personal material, supports, and equipment. Students today need laptops and all sorts of other technologies, cell phones and other materials. And so here is Missy in class with a laptop just like everybody else. She's no different. She's doing what all students need to do today. Number 4, physical setting features that promote a person's growth. So one of those is easy, accessible setting. Not only do students need accessible settings, so do staff, faculty, visitors, the ability to get around campus, into events, dorms, both on campus and off. And here is Missy. She's in a meeting with Jan, who is the director of the Integrated Studies program at Millersville University. But she's in an accessible setting, so Jan can get around in her wheelchair. Other students with disabilities can get around. Faculty who might be using wheelchairs can get around. So again, the setting needs to be accessible. Another aspect of the physical setting that promotes a person's growth is that it's located amidst resources that provide opportunities for competency development. So a rural college, a university may have less opportunities for students than a suburban urban setting. Nevertheless, we know the importance of community campus opportunities to use resources. Here is Missy with other university friends at a campus cafeteria. Another aspect of the physical setting features that promote growth is physically being comfortable. We know that if you're in a setting that is loud, that is noisy, that smells, you're not going to learn as well because you're concentrating on all those distractors. So students' learning is affected by temperature, lighting, noise, odor, the number of people there, the type of furniture, color, even other factors. And here Missy is studying in an area she finds to be comfortable to her on the Millersville University campus. Another aspect of physical setting features that promote a person's growth is competency, challenging environment that is neither over nor under protective. Sending a child off to college or university can be difficult for parents who want to protect their child, as well as to a student used to being overly protected. Streets to cross, traffic, nightlife, contact with other people can all be overwhelming. With appropriate support and learning, students learn to adapt to their environment, to develop competence and skills to live and work in the world. Therefore, it's so important not to see students with disabilities as children or dependent or in a pity charity role, which does not promote confidence. Missy has learned to get around on university campus and community, increasing her competence when she enters the world of work. And this is something all students wind up learning when they leave their mom and dad's homes. Number 5 is the promotion or establishment of culturally valued autonomy and rights. Going to college or university is all about students becoming responsible adults, understanding their rights, learning to self-determine, making choices, having control over their lives. This is scary for parents, but that's part of what going off to college is, to become that competent adult. So you have to ask, does your inclusive higher education initiative promote students growing in this area? Are parents still making the students' decisions, or are staff or faculty? That's not how it should be. The students should be making their own decisions, determining for themselves the courses they want to take, certainly with the help and advice of parents and faculty, but ultimately it's the student who needs to make these decisions. Here, Missy is looking over her personal futures plan that she helped direct to provide her with a roadmap for her future. She knows where she wants to be. She has help in this process, but it's her decisions that are so important. Also, on the promotion of establishment of culturally valued is interpersonal interactions. So you have to ask, does your initiative promote students to interact with others, especially other non-disabled students? Initiatives have lots of opportunities to arrange, promote students gaining interpersonal skills so they can interact with students, faculty, in their internships, and to build their social capital. Here, Missy is in a conversation with a student without a disability in a class she is taking. In concluding this part of the presentation, here are a few questions to ask yourself. Do I believe that students with intellectual and other disabilities have the potential to learn even beyond my own expectations? I know this is something I've struggled with. When I see a student with more of a severe disability, I've got to challenge myself not to limit them in what they're able to do. So we need to have high expectations for the students that come to us. Also, how do I assist others in the university or college to embrace this belief? You might hold that belief, but how do you get others, faculty members, support staff, even other students, to see the power and the potential in a student with an intellectual disability? And are we doing all we can to enhance the competence of the students we serve in our inclusive higher education initiative? What else might we do to enhance the competence of students, as well as faculty and others involved in our inclusive higher education initiatives? Another theme I want to speak to you about that ties in really nicely with what we just talked about, competency enhancement and the developmental model, is the power of imitation and modeling. Now, there are 5 important realities about imitation and modeling. First, built into human nature, that's part of whom we are as human beings. Imitation is not about rote imitating, as it is a big and important part of all of our lives. For those of you with kids, you know at an early stage, babies will imitate your smile. They'll imitate all sorts of things. So this is how humans learn. We also know that imitation starts really early. It's part of our primitive learning mechanisms. And again, we see this in babies, as I just mentioned, who will smile, who will laugh, who will learn words, and all sorts of actions. We know that imitation is extremely powerful for both good and bad. And we've got to be careful about that we make sure that we present people with positive, valued models to imitate. And we know that, number 4, imitation serves very adaptive functions for how we do, act, be, get along, function in various situations. I always joke at when you go to a fancy meal, and there's all those silverware in front of you. Sometimes you'll be watching the person that knows the scene. To what fork are they going to use first? You're imitating, you're modeling, you're learning by example. And so many of us do that. We don't think about it, but it happens every day in every way. And number 5, throughout life, the process of imitation and role-playing come together so we can learn various roles from modeling and imitation, beginning at a very young age. When I was a house painter, my little kids ran around with paintbrushes imitating me. When I had a desk job and I carried a little briefcase, they had their little briefcases at the house. So we know this occurs whether you want it to or not. It's a very powerful mechanism for people to learn and to grow. And most of us live in a model-rich environment throughout life. And inclusive post-secondary education programs is an incredibly rich model. There's lots of people, which might be very different from what students have experienced in high school, where they've been in special education classes, K through 12, where their only models are other students with intellectual disabilities. So what you learn then is how to be disabled. But when you're on a college campus amongst everybody else, you're modeling their behaviors, both good and bad, but you're learning about the world and how it functions and operates. So all of us really utilize imitation and modeling all the time. It costs nothing other than to be mindful and conscious of its usefulness. At an early age, we find various people and groups to model and imitate from. And this really starts with your family and your kin. And oftentimes it's the parents that the kids are modeling, or it's other people, other children in the household. Okay? And we also know that intimate groups become a way that people imitate and model. Well, that's a church group that you go to, or a political party or belief group. It could be your ethnic group. I'm Italian, so I certainly learned a lot of my modeling from being part of an Italian family and household. Fraternal societies, being in a frat club or a sorority can certainly be ways that you model and learn. People who have similar worldviews and social views, we imitate and model those folks. And we know that colleges and universities, the peers and the faculty, they're wonderful opportunities for modeling and for growth. And I know for me, I'm here, because I wanted to model and imitate Dr. Wolfensberger in many ways, because the way he lived his life, the way he taught, the things that he did were very powerful to me. So we all imitate great models in our lives. Now, the image here shows how a younger child will model and imitate her sibling with the same open-mouthed expression, the hand on the side of the face. So we know this. I'm not teaching you or talking to you about anything you don't know already. We all use imitation and modeling. The problem has been we've not been conscious of its value and its power and its usefulness for people with intellectual disabilities, and in fact we've gone the opposite direction. So colleges and universities are wonderful opportunities to imitate and to model. Now, there are many ways in which to use imitation for achieving social role valorization in inclusive higher education initiatives. First, know its power, because we use it all the time, whether we're mindful of it or not. Number two, be mindful of the contributions and inspiration received from great models. For some of us, it's our faith belief. Jesus, Buddha, Allah, Gandhi, Martin Luther King, a teacher, a professor, a coach. We all tend to want to model certain people in our life that have had a big impact on us. Number three, identify what to model. For inclusive higher education initiatives, good practices like studying, working hard, having a vision for the future. These are the sort of things that we would hope that people would want to model. Interpret to mentors, to tutors, to faculty and others what should be modeled so they better understand the vulnerability and devaluation experienced by students with disabilities, and counter that with good, positive modeling and imitation. Number five, you've got to discern good models for students, as not everyone is a good model. And some mentors and tutors and even volunteers may need to be instructed in this area about what good modeling is. Taking someone out to have drinks every night might seem like a lot of fun, but for a student already at risk, going out to the bar every night and then not studying and not doing your coursework and showing up to class late, that's not the sort of modeling we're looking for. We're looking to hook a student up with a mentor, with a tutor, certainly who can go out and have fun, but equally they have a role to play, and that role is to model the most appropriate behavior so that student has the best chances for having a good education and leaving college with good opportunities for the world of work. 6, surround students, especially vulnerable students, with good models. So this is one reason not to group students with disabilities together, because what they're going to model then is other students with disabilities. So we really want inclusive higher education initiatives to really surround students with intellectual disabilities with other matriculating students so they can model those interactions and relationships. And number 7, as much as possible, protect students from exposure to bad models. And again, we don't want to overly protect students, but the realities are we can be very helpful and thoughtful about who the good models are, who are the good people to be hooked up with, who we can select as mentors and as volunteers and as tutors. So number 8, in situations that are new or equivocal to the student, we've got to be mindful to have good, positive models in place from the start, like at the orientation for students, when assigning a mentor or tutor, when going off to new or on-campus activities. You want to be mindful about placing those students with people who are to give the best examples of modeling and imitation. Number 9, we want to promote the student's sense of identification with other students and faculty who are good models. We talked about this in one of the themes, wanting to be like the person, the personal identification. We all do this. This is not unique to students with intellectual disabilities, but we want to make sure that we're doing our best to hook students up with the best models possible. And number 10, we want to reinforce positive imitation for students, letting students know how proud you are of them, their behavior, their actions, their conduct. People around them as well to reinforce that positive behavior, being to class on time, being prepared, participating in class in an active way, talking with faculty. We want to really say, gee, Guy, that was great. I really enjoyed how you participated in class today. So you're trying to, again, elevate the students' ideas and presence around others. And then 11, and this is really important, be a good model oneself to students, to mentors, to students, to faculty, and others. Whether you believe it or not, students watch you, they imitate you, they conduct themselves in ways that represent a good example. So you need to be a good example in your actions and your dress and your language. Now, I didn't believe this until I was coaching soccer with my kids, and if I'm yelling and screaming at the refs, guess what's happening right behind me? The soccer players, those young kids, are modeling my behavior because I'm in a position of power as a coach. So you're in a position of power when you work in an inclusive higher education program. So you need to be a good model yourself in dress, behaviors, language, all those things I just spoke about. So in closing, it's important to remember that imitation and modeling are powerful. They happen every day. They cost nothing. Students with disabilities will model classmates, friends, and peers. Here we have an image of 5 students attending Temple University taking a Christmas Village selfie in Center City, Philadelphia. It's hard to tell who's disabled and not in this example. And the point is, that's what you want, that people model and imitate other students who are matriculating students, and you can't tell the difference. And again, that's the power of imitation and modeling. So thank you for watching these 2 themes. We really appreciate your time with us today, and we hope that this is useful to you.